Michelle Remembers, Part 2, The Devil's Playground. I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And this is Ghost Town.
Welcome back to Michelle Remembers, a shocking tale of Michelle Smith's recovered memories around her satanic ritualized abuse. Or was it? We'll get into the effects of this salacious memoir right now in Part 2 of Ghost Town's Halloween series, Michelle Remembers, The Devil's Playground. In 1980, the book Michelle Remembers burst onto the scene, promoted with articles in People magazine and the National Enquirer. Pazder and Smith also toured the United States to promote the book. The book was 372 pages and included a few black and white photographs, which allegedly show a mark left on Smith's arm that supposedly appeared after she remembered Satan touched her, and the face of Satan appearing in smoke, which is, if you look at it, a bit of a stretch. That being said, the book was a gigantic success, earning Pazder and Smith a $100,000 hardcover advance, $242,000 for paperback rights, royalties, and even a potential movie deal. It became this cultural moment in Canadian history, and even now is recounted by Canadian youth as a significant moment in time. But the validation didn't end there. In 1989, Oprah Winfrey featured Smith as a guest on her show alongside Laurel Rose Wilson, another author of a different satanic ritual abuse memoir called Satan's Underground.
My next guest was used also in worshiping the devil, participated in human sacrifice rituals and cannibalism. She says her family has been involved in rituals for generations. She is currently in extensive therapy, suffers from multiple personality disorder, meaning she's blocked out many of the terrifying and painful memories of her childhood.
Both women's experiences were presented by Oprah Winfrey as fact. Not once did she question the authenticity of any claim in either book. In Michelle Remembers, Pazder and the publisher made a point to say the book's source materials, mostly therapy tapes, were heavily scrutinized and vetted for factuality. However, the accuracy of the allegations in Michelle Remembers were questioned soon after the book was published by experts, friends, family, and many, many journalists. But the book's notoriety transcended its criticism, at least at first. Pazder developed a huge media profile based on the book, coining the term ritual abuse and giving lectures and training on satanic ritual abuse to law enforcement and other institutions, who then began touting themselves as occult experts. As Blanche Barton, Magistra in the Church of Satan, explains in the documentary Satan Wants You about Michelle Remembers, quote, "We called them cops for Christ, people who had their own agenda and created these materials and presented them as actual, scientific, confirmed fact." Of course, the Catholic Church had a vested interest in promoting the book as factual themselves. Financing the book's publication and promotional tour, they believed it would inspire people to go back to church and make Catholicism, well, a bit more relevant again. And there was also money to be made by taking Michelle Remembers into the legal realm. By September 1990, Pazder had acted as a consultant on more than 1,000 satanic ritual abuse cases, including the incredibly high-profile McMartin preschool trial. The McMartin preschool trial was a 1987 daycare sexual abuse case persecuted by the then Los Angeles District Attorney, Ira Reiner, who used Michelle Remembers as a guide to build his case against the members of the McMartin family, who operated a preschool in Manhattan Beach, California. The McMartins, perceived of as Satanists, were charged with hundreds of horrific acts of sexual abuse on infants and children in their care. Hugely sensational, the case lasted 7 years, but resulted in no convictions, though it did result in more than 100 preschools across the country becoming the target of other sensationalist allegations, which the press immediately ran with. Despite the fact that Michelle Smith and other alleged survivors met with parents involved in the trial to help them, allegedly, quote-unquote, recover memories, in 1990, all charges were dropped, resulting in a succession of the longest, most expensive, and most ineffective, in my humble opinion, of criminal trials in American history. Though by many standards, the McMartin preschool trial was a huge waste of time and money, not to mention trauma that everyone endured, the law cracked down on any allegation that even smelled of satanic panic. The implementation of mandatory reporting laws saw a large increase in child protection investigations in America, Great Britain, and other developed countries, along with heightened reporting of child abuse and coercive interviewing techniques that had been previously avoided by police investigators. These techniques resulted in an increase in confessions of abuse by fathers and caregivers in exchange for lighter plea bargains than they might have seen had their cases been prosecuted. Less concerning, perhaps, were the many adults that started reporting uncovered memories of their own satanic ritual abuse, fueling the fire of Satanic Panic. Pazder was also throwing around assertions that Michelle Smith's abuse came at the hands of the Church of Satan, the root of the satanic ritualistic crimes happening in the U.S. Anton LaVey, which we've talked about a lot on this podcast, then head of the Church of Satan, did not like that and threatened to sue Pazder for libel, alleging that, quote, the book was defamatory, libelous, and had resulted in a loss of reputation. Blanche Barton, again magistrate in the Church of Satan, also explains, quote, one of the things LaVey was particularly miffed about is how Michelle Remembers was marketed as a supposedly true story, but was so chock full of things which Satanism isn't. As defendants, according to Michelle Misremembers, a 2023 piece published in the Skeptical Inquirer, Pazder and his team offered several contradictory rebuttals to LaVey's allegations. The defendants claimed Pazder had never heard of Anton LaVey, denied that Anton LaVey could suffer a loss of reputation because he was, by his own admission, a Satanist and celebrity, and therefore libel-proof, and argued that, despite the aggressive marketing of the book as, quote, based on a true story, the contents of the book were instead based on Smith's memories recalled while under hypnosis, and therefore not necessarily, quote, unquote, true. LaVey fired back, saying that it was insane that an occult and satanic expert wouldn't know who he was, Anton LaVey, and that practices portrayed in the book Michelle Remembers are antithetical to the Church of Satan, including and especially the abuse of children and animals. Quote, these innocent creatures are in fact revered by the Church of Satan for their innate purity of spirit and lack of hypocrisy. For us to harm a child or animal physically, emotionally, or mentally is unthinkable. These heinous acts attributed to the Church of Satan by Michelle Remembers are profoundly misleading and damaging to the Church of Satan, my wife Diane, and myself as a leader. We feel defamed and feel we have all been put in a false light. Pazder eventually withdrew his assertion that the Church of Satan had anything to do with Michelle Smith's abuse, and took the mention of the Church of Satan out of the next edition of the book. This also helped critics of the book understand how perhaps Michelle Remembers was not all it was marketed to be. But the damage was done, and even now, Michelle Remembers' legacy conflates the Church of Satan and Satanism with the many abuses mentioned in the book. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. To go back to Michelle Smith, her family and friends vehemently deny and have always said that Michelle was not abused. In October 1980, investigative journalist Paul Gresco wrote an article for Canadian news magazine Maclean's in which he interviewed Smith's father, Jack Proby, who point-blank denied the allegations. More recently, Cheryl Proby Ostman, Michelle Smith's younger sister, also publicly denied any abuse took place and revealed that Smith's accusations, and of course the book, created a horrible and unsurprising rift in the family. Gresco's piece also noted the lack of police reports, despite the book making many references to reports and police being called on some of the events. And then there's the matter of Michelle Smith and Dr. Pazder's affair. Pazder's first wife, Marilyn, and his daughter Teresa explained that during their work together, Smith and Pazder's burgeoning relationship, including many long private trips together between March 1997 and June 1979, led to Pazder's divorce and estrangement from his family. Because of this, Marilyn was hell-bent on proving Michelle Remembers' memories were false, and in the Pazder's divorce proceedings, Marilyn and Teresa were able to recover Smith's elementary school yearbook, confirming that during the 81 days that she claimed to have been captive and horribly abused by Satanists in that one long ritual, she in fact attended school. Like many of the satanic conflicts in history, Michelle Remembers was an effort against cultural progress and new ideologies, differing religions, and opinions on, quote, family values. But of course, it also made Dr. Lawrence and Michelle Pazder, who would later marry, a lot of money, and it fueled anti-Satanist evangelists for years to come. But as media interest in the Satanic Panic died down, and insurance companies became less and less willing to pay out for claims of satanic ritual abuse, Pazder slipped into obscurity and died of heart failure in 2004. Michelle Smith, now Michelle Pazder, is still alive and well, and according to her sister in the documentary Satan Wants You, has never recanted or acknowledged her story as false. The makers of the film reached out to Smith twice on the matter, but she refused to participate in any filming. Beyond satanic ritual, therapists and psychoanalysts still debate whether or not memories of childhood trauma can actually be repressed, and how Michelle Remembers paved the way for conspiracies like Pizzagate and QAnon that still hold profound resonance today. The 2023 article published in the Skeptical Inquirer I mentioned earlier said that the book had extremely long-lasting and serious repercussions, perpetuated persistently and consciously by so-called true believers. Quote, "The persistence of conspiracy theories over time reminds us that no matter how much critical thinking and careful investigation might cast reasonable doubt on the belief that Satanists are dangerous child abusers, people who truly believe will continue to try to warn and influence new believers. A lesson from your friends at Ghost Town: keep your eyes and ears open. Perhaps the repressed memories, Satanists or cults aren't the ones to fear, but the truth tellers and repressors themselves, hiding in the darkness."
If she came along and said to us, "Hey, I made it all up, I'm sorry," then we would understand. But she hasn't. She's never apologized. She's never, nothing. Whether she made it up or whether Larry and her made it up together, I don't know. But she was able to do it. She had a motive. The motive was that she wanted to have Larry as her husband.
Do I put on you?
No, don't tell me. You can let yourself go back to it.
I want to keep remembering everything. Like I'm making it up. And it's still memory. And it's still more memory. There's no special feeling.
I'm not good into tonight.
I can't tell what's real anymore. I couldn't tell what was real. I couldn't tell what was real.